secondary. And maybe that's something that if he ever has to play again, have him take advantage of something like that again. And I think he really did well. The one play that stood out to me from the short pass plays was the 4th and 1 call where I thought maybe they would just run it up the gut, but instead they dump it off to, or he dumps it off to Juju McDowell, and it's an easy touchdown. So it's plays like that that I think really work for him. And you'd like to see more of that going forward because, once again, I feel like his confidence is a lot better after a game like this.
By the way, have you ever seen somebody more wide open than Juju was on that?
Oh, man, it was the perfect play call. And I don't think many people were expecting it, but hey, it was wide open.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And good for Robbie Ashford for going out there performing the way that he did. And again, we weren't wrong to be critical of his throwing ability leading into the game last week because he hadn't shown us a whole lot of that through the first couple weeks outside of a couple throws, against LSU. But again, I thought it was schemed up really well. And again, he did his job, and you're able to empty the bench a little bit as the game goes along. We saw Davis Bevel. We saw Dante Reno. And how cool was that for Davis Bevel? It's got talked about on the broadcast as well. This is a guy that has been around, was at Pitt, goes to Oklahoma, had not thrown a touchdown pass since the Peach Bowl in 2021. And yeah, it's in garbage time, but still, that's a pretty cool moment for him. And I'm sure a lot of his family that was at the game to see him be able to get that touchdown. I think he's the one that threw it to Connor Cox.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So really cool moment there.
Yeah, and he's a South Carolina guy. I mean, he went to Greenville High, and that's awesome for him. I mean, that's really cool to see. It's just, I think his dad grew up like a Clemson fan or something, or played at Clemson. I can't remember what it was, but so it is cool to see this guy with all these Carolina ties come in here, be a backup, get put on scholarship, and then he throws a touchdown. It's really cool stuff. And I think, again, he looks pretty good out there. I think,
his arm's good.
Again, like if you ever need one of these guys at quarterback, I'd feel good about any three of them.
Yeah, and there were people that raised concern last week of, well, why didn't you bring in Davis Bevel because of his ability to throw better late in that game against LSU? I think that's a fair point to make because, again, he can sling it down the field and you have a little bit more confidence in him doing that. So if you're ever posed with a similar situation where you're going to have to continue to throw the ball down the field, maybe you entertain the idea of Davis Bevel. Maybe I kind of understand why they didn't do it last week because Robbie Ashford had been your primary two up to this point, but there's always a possibility that something that could be coming down the road. Knock on wood, hopefully North Sellers doesn't get injured again, but if you do end up in that situation, I think it's worth a debate.
Oh, totally. It is worth a debate, and I think both guys have different attributes, right? I think you could say Davis is a better passer, but Robbie's obviously the better runner. And honestly, Robbie, I mean, after seeing his arm, it's not like some of these throws he was making deep were just like more on the receiver making great catches. I mean, some of these were well-placed balls. And, I mean, look, that's kind of something you can really debate on. Okay, who has better arm strength? Maybe it's Davis, but I think just in general, we've seen it through one start. Robbie played very well.
Robbie has a good arm. His accuracy is
it's a little so-so.
Little off, which is the concern there. And again, we've only seen a small sample size of Davis Bevel, but given what his skill set is, I think you would say he's definitely the better passer of the two.
Probably.
But again, Robbie Ashford's a better runner. So again, hopefully we don't have to have this debate down the line because Sellers, is good and healthy, and we're not in that situation again.
Yeah, but the point is, I think I asked Shane about this after Saturday's game. I mean, he has confidence in all three guys, like, if needed, can go out there and play well. And I think that's such a good thing to have because I know before the season started when they were trying to get quarterbacks out of the portal, it was this whole discussion about, okay, gonna get this guy, that guy, and some of them didn't want to come here because they weren't promised the opportunity to start. Look at these guys that have come in here and they've done really well.
Plenty more to dive into, including a bit of a concern on the injury front coming away from Saturday night. We'll dive into that coming up. It is a Reaction Monday. Tyler Head and Jack Felch from Gamecock Central along with you on the Extra Point here on the game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. I tell you about it all the time. There's really never a bad time to go hang out at Twin Peaks, but especially during football season. You have a full day of college football on Saturdays, full days of pro football on Sundays, Monday night football, Thursday night football. There's never a bad time to hang out at Twin Peaks. And you don't have to wait for the weekend either. They're serving scratch food and pouring quality cocktails every day after dark. Come by the lodge and experience the best late night in the league today, tomorrow, or any other day of the week. And if you're looking for a job where you can have a ton of fun and make great money, Twin Peaks is the team for you. They're looking for Twin Peaks girls, cooks, bussers, barbacks, and more. Just text WORK, the number 4TP, to 85000 to apply. Again, that is WORK, the number 4TP, to 85000 for our friends over at Twin Peaks.
We'll practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we need to get better as a team, but we certainly need to get healthy, and I think they'll all be fine. I don't think any of those guys I know none of them are long-term. Jared will be a little bit day-to-day, but Lenoris will be fine. Rocket will be fine. We want to be smart with them this week, but we got to get healthy, but we also got to get better in practice this week.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry along with you here on your Reaction Monday on the game. Coach Beamer giving the injury report after Saturday night, one of the big objectives when you play a game like this is don't get anybody hurt. And unfortunately, very early in the game, a bit of a scary moment. Rocket Sanders getting rolled up when he's out there blocking on a play and hobbles off. The panic button is starting to get hit there a little bit, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. Held him out for the rest of the game for precautionary reasons, but definitely a moment where we all kind of held our breath there for a minute.
Oh, yeah, it was for a minute. I'm sure it was just absolute, just heart pumping like crazy. And yeah, I mean, look, I think coming out of it now, it's like, okay, like let him rest, let him get recovered, and I think he'll be good to go in 2 weeks when Ole Miss gets here. I think it seems like that, at least from what Beamer had to say.
Yeah, and I can't imagine he was going to get too heavy of a workload in the game anyway. I think the original plan going in was probably going to be featuring a lot of running backs, but they just kind of ended up having to expedite that a little quicker than they thought they were going to. But, we got to see really the depth of the bench. We've seen Oscar Attaway a little bit. I've seen Juju McDowell, but you got Jordan Howell, you got Matthew Fuller. I guess DJ Braswell never got in there, but Bradley Dunn got out there. Like, you really emptied the running back bench on Saturday, which was probably one of the goals going into the weekend.
Yeah, and isn't that that's what they wanted. I mean, it just ended up happening a lot quicker than maybe Shane Beamer wanted to. But again, he spoke about, I think, Saturday and Sunday during his teleconference. He wanted to get the running backs in there, eventually. That was always going to be the plan, regardless of whether Rocket was in there or not. And I mean, he saw big strides from Jawarn Howell and Matthew Fuller, who he's already said he wants to try to find ways to get them in there more. And they're good runners, man. I mean, I think they really do have a good running back room. It just took a few games to finally see it realized.
Yeah, and through the first couple of games, we were kind of waiting for Rocket Sanders to kind of have that Rocket Sanders type performance. He finally had that last weekend against LSU, and, he's taking the bulk of the carries. But if you can alleviate a little bit of that load on him, just to keep him fresh more than anything else, I think that's going to be that's something that could certainly pay dividends as you get later in the season where, his workload isn't as much. And, if you need him a little bit fresher late in the fourth quarter against a Missouri or an A&M or something like that, that could certainly help the team out.
Totally. And I think what you also got to see from this game is that some of these guys have different strengths. It's kind of like the whole quarterback situation. At least to me, Oscar Attaway, he is someone I could see really being a good piece in goal line situations. Like, he had 2 touchdowns in the red zone for South Carolina. He had 42 yards, but it's not like, his longest run of the day was 8 yards. Meanwhile, Jawarn Howell, Matthew Fuller, Jawarn ran for 23 yards for his longest carry of the day. And then, Matthew Fuller is really pumping through the line of scrimmage and making some nice runs. So they all have different assets to their game that can really be nice when you need to kind of offload some of the workload off of Rocket.
And, Juju McDowell, who's, again, been around this program forever, you saw once again how versatile he can be as well, which is something that, and I brought this point up many times before, I feel like Dow Loggins was really just kind of figuring out how to use him to his best abilities towards the end of last season before he suffered the shoulder injury against Vanderbilt and was out for the rest of the year. So you saw that on display once again on Saturday night, using him in motion, putting him out at receiver, obviously in the backfield, catching out of the backfield with that touchdown where he was, wide open. It was in his own zip code, basically. So I don't know how much of a role he's going to play going forward, but that's somebody that you can always break out and give you a little bit of a different look compared to some of what the other running backs do.
And that's another guy. He's got such different attributes compared to these guys because he's a very, very good receiving back, and he's just, again, he's a real gadget type of player, I think, in this offense, and he does his job very well. And I think South Carolina is really just that much better when they use more of him, and you saw that on Saturday with the way he's able to catch passes and also run the football.
Let's hear from Coach Beamer talking about his running backs. Go cut number 14 here, Terry. This is him post-game talking about the backs they got to see on Saturday.
We wanted going into this game, regardless of the score, close game, tight game, blowout, whatever it might be, we wanted to get we wanted to get those young backs in, Fuller and Howell both, just to get them rolling. And we were able to get them in, and I thought they did some really nice things. I think both those guys, Todd, have a chance to be big-time running backs for us. And we've got to continue to increase their reps because they've got a little juice to them. And they're young and they're learning, but I'm really excited about their ability and potential and future here at Carolina.
And those are two guys that you do think about on the long-term scale. Now, again, the transfer portal can obviously open up the door for anybody to leave at any time, but assuming those guys do decide to stick around once you no longer have Rocket, once you no longer have Oscar Hadaway, those could be your feature backs over the next couple of years. We know what Jordan Howell did down the road at SC State. We know how highly touted Matthew Fuller was, coming out of high school, and in the small sample size that we saw from these guys, pretty promising.
Yeah, I think those guys, like you said, are the future at that position, and that's a really nice spot to be in. And who knows what happens with DJ Braswell right now. I think, Shane did mention him during the teleconference. He said I think DJ was the scout team offensive player of the week. So, he's still around with the program. It's just he's not seeing reps. So maybe he ends up redshirting this year. And then you get to use him again next year with this team if he ends up sticking around, which I think creates a really good dynamic in that room in addition to the guys they already have there.
By the way, you want to talk about offensive balance? 276 yards through the air, 273 yards on the ground, 549 total yards. That's about as perfect as it gets.
Perfectly balanced, man, as all things should be. That's awesome to see right there.
Yeah, no, certainly. And again, we have to always take these kind of things with a grain of salt because it was Akron, a very poor team that we spent the entire week telling everyone listening how bad of a team they were. But again, Carolina went out there, handled their business, put up 50 points, which makes you feel good. And that's the thing coming away from this game, regardless of who the opponent is. When you go out there and do your job, you're going to feel good about it. You're not worried about, that team was the worst in FBS or that was Alabama. No matter what, if you do your job, you feel good about that going into the bye week.
Absolutely, man. I think they took out a lot of that frustration from last week against LSU into this game, and they unleashed it in a big way. 50 points on the board. I wasn't expecting them to put that many points, especially when they had like 29 or whatever going into the fourth quarter. I'm like, they'll do what they need to do and finish it off. But, man, they capped it off in a big way, and they're heading to the bye week feeling real good right now.
Take a look at what happened from the defensive side of the ball coming up. Quickly, though, I want to remind you, the Loyola-Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest rolls on to another week. Still have not had that Special Teams touchdown this year. That means $500 going to be up for grabs in 2 weeks when Ole Miss comes town. Go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win, because whenever that touchdown happens, you can win all that money in the pot as $100 gets added each and every week. Appreciate everyone over at Loyola-Lisa from the Special Teams Touchdown Contest. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Reaction Monday here on The Game.
Finley, quick throw down the field into coverage. Picked off DQ Smith. DQ Smith is first on the year.
Welcome back.
Finley,
There we go.
quick throw down the field into coverage. Picked off DQ Smith. DQ Smith is first on the year.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher along with you on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. It is time for our Talking Hardwood segment brought to you by Georgia Pacific. And it is here we're talking some defense as they went out there and performed as you hoped they were going to perform on Saturday. Only 154 yards allowed, 117 through the air, only 37 on the ground. I mean, really not much in the complaint department for the defense here. Everybody that you expected to perform did, and you held a very bad offense in check, minus one play.
Yeah, and I think it was just a really good overall game for this defense. Yeah, the Judge Collier getting beat on that one touchdown pass, that's not great. But again, it's one play. It happens. And overall, looked very good. DQ Smith got that big play he had been needing, and boy, did he celebrate running to the other end zone after that.
I couldn't tell if Beamer was just overexcited or if he was kind of frustrated with him for doing that. I couldn't see it. I was watching him on the sidelines as they were coming back over, and I don't know if he gave him a hard time for that or not. We see that a lot in like the NFL. Like, all right, you get an interception, go run the length of the field to the other side so you can celebrate with the fans or whatever. But I guess if you don't get flagged for it, it's okay.
I'm just shocked he didn't get flagged for it. But you know what? Let him have fun. He's a college kid after all, and he's been needing a play like that for a bit now. So happy to see it for him, and happy to see this defense play another very good game, especially after giving up 36 points last week. And yeah.
So we had pretty high expectations for the pass rush coming into this game. Officially only 2 sacks, but I thought Akron schemed against that pretty well. Just where they were getting the ball out quick, very short throws, not really waiting for things to develop down the field. So they did their best to try and neuter what South Carolina was best at on defense. Still had guys getting home, still had guys putting a lot of pressure, but it wasn't the sack fest that I think we were all hoping for.
No, it really didn't feel like that. I felt like Akron, for what it's worth, protected pretty well, in terms of not allowing a ton of sacks or anything. And look, Dylan Stewart had only 2 tackles on Saturday. He didn't really make the big plays that I think a lot of people were expecting in what would have been like a bounce back game. But I mean, let's not get it wrong, though. I mean, Kyle Kennard still made some nice plays getting into the backfield. Debo Williams cleaned it up a bit. I mean, it was a very good game for this defense overall, despite not having 5-6 sacks in this game.
Biggest thing for me, only 3 missed tackles on the game after 17 last week against LSU. We talk about these games being the opportunity to clean up what you're struggling with, to go out there and do your job and feel good about something in a certain area. And those missed tackles, which is something South Carolina has had a problem with the first 3 games, looked a whole lot better on Saturday.
That was noticeably better. Just overall, really fantastic job in that area. For me, I would say the fact that they only held Akron to 154 yards overall, that is a recipe for success. Couple that with the fact you almost had 550 yards of offense, you really can't complain. I mean, seriously, it really was an all-around great game for this team going into the bye week.
By the way, as always on Reaction Monday, if you want to weigh in, Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100, same number for the Love Chevrolet phone lines as well. And since we're talking about Akron and their offense, we knew coming into the game they had this 2-quarterback thing with Finley and Bullock. I didn't keep count of it. I don't recall seeing them run that too much on Saturday. I don't know if you were keeping account of that or not.
I really didn't notice it too much. I mean, you look at the numbers here. Taj Bullock, the backup for Akron, 2 of 3 passing for 7 yards. And then, on the ground, Bullock only had 3 carries. So it's like it really wasn't probably used to the fullest like it probably could have been. But again, maybe Carolina just took it out of the system. I'm not sure.
They did break out, which I credit Chris Clark for this. I didn't know this was the official name for it. The Emery and Henry formation, where they split the tackles out way wide with the wide receivers. Now, they never ran a play out of that. That was always a pre-snap look. Then they ended up bringing them back in. But Joe Moorhead's a guy that's been known to think outside the box, and that's definitely thinking outside the box.
And you could definitely do it in a game like this where you're getting paid $1.5 million and you're a heavy underdog. Like, you really got nothing to lose, and if anything, it teaches you more about what your football team can and can't do in specific packages. But, yeah, I mean, for Akron, look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a loss, but, hey, like Joe Moore had said, you're gonna get to upgrade a lot of. I think he said in his press
saddles for the equestrian team.
Yeah, saddles for the equestrian team and new textbooks and all that. So hey, it's more money for the school, and gotta be happy about that.
Listen, I appreciate the honesty from a coach like that, where look, every coach of these G5 teams or FCS teams, comes into these games, says, well, they're just another opponent, and we're going to treat them like another opponent. Like, Joe Moorhead's been around the block. He's been at Penn State. He's been at Mississippi State. He knows what these games are about, and he is well aware of how poor his football team is. So he wasn't trying to pull wool over anyone's eyes by any means on or leading into the game on Saturday night. And again, a 43-point win is about where we expected it.
Yep, and you just hope for Akron's sake they get to have a little bit more fun here as the year goes on. But yeah, that's it's good for them to make some money on this loss.
Do we know what the exact payout on this game was?
It was $1.5 million, I believe. Yep.
Okay.
So I mean, you couple that between Ohio State, I'm sure Rutgers paid a good bit, and this game, I mean, hey, they're doing pretty well despite all the losing seasons they tend to have.
That's a lot of saddles. What can you get for $4-ish million roughly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much a saddle costs, but I'm sure it costs a good bit. So
I guess the question is, did they have to pay Colgate for that game last week?
Ooh, probably, because it's a non-conference game. I would imagine
like $500K, something like that.
Yeah, it's Colgate. They don't need the money.
I don't know what the difference is between like what G5 teams pay to FCS teams.
It's definitely not as much because, again, these are smaller schools that we're talking about that probably don't have. I'm not saying they don't have money, but not as much as a South Carolina or Ohio State.
Yeah, no, but again, you went out there, handled business on Saturday, 43-point win, covered the spread, and it allowed. Well, one benefit of games like that, where you got it well in hand in the second half, and people do start to file out a little bit early. It makes the traffic a whole lot easier leaving. For those of us that stay to the very end of the game, then you just hop out on Bluff Road, get right out of the interstate pretty quickly, and I think I was home in like 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, and granted, we all left the press box well after midnight, so it was like, okay,
you guys don't really have to worry about traffic as much.
Yeah, I mean, getting in, I had to go around like the entire part of Columbia, like getting out of traffic. But I mean, coming back, it was fine, and I'm sure a lot of people that left during the game. I mean, I don't blame them, to be honest, but. I mean, there was definitely probably some traffic, but by the way, good crowd on Saturday to start the game.
Very good crowd.
I will say that. I needed to mention that. Good crowd to start the game, and I know it filed out, but yeah, they really did show up, the fans.
Yeah, and look, Saturday was amazing weather, a little on the warmer side, but we kind of had the rain and gray all week, so I think everybody was excited to get out and enjoy a nice day. And that's the thing about South Carolina is you never know when the nice warm days are going to end. It could be 95 degrees against Ole Miss here in a couple weeks, or it could be 70 degrees. Like you just never really know what you're going to get once you start getting into the month of October. So great day, great opportunity to enjoy another nice day, and first true night game. I know the Old Dominion game went in tonight because of the lightning delay and all that kind of stuff, but there's just something different about the night atmosphere. And when you have a team that was going in the game 2-1, opportunity to go 3-1, a lot of belief in what this team's going to be this year, there's a lot of reason to be excited. There's a lot of reason to want to show up to these games, even if it is in Akron, and go out there and support your team. Oh, yeah. I mean, again, great atmosphere. Wasn't expecting it to be packed out. And then again, just 5 minutes before kickoff, I'm like, dang, this place is like, it kind of reminded me of the LSU game. I'm like, it's pretty packed in here. And hey, they put on a good show for the fans, so good to see it. Everyone happy. I did notice in the press box, Akron didn't send as many reporters down as LSU did. And you know what's ridiculous? Zippy, the mascot for Akron, just wasn't there. And it's like... Do mascots typically travel for the away games? I don't know. I know a lot of teams, like their cheerleaders often don't travel for away games. I know I've noticed it with SEC games, but I'm pretty sure one of the agreements for this game was that the mascot could come. Okay. But it's like, she didn't come. I don't know what happened. Maybe the carry-on for the flight was too expensive to bring the gear. It's carry-on. That's another hotel room. Plus, whatever poor students in that thing. It's really hot.
That's true.
Listen, I don't envy anybody that has to do the mascot stuff because there's no AC in there, and especially for days like Saturday when it's pushing 90 degrees, that's probably pretty miserable.
That's where they need to invest that money. At 1.5 million, let's get a mascot costume for Zippy with some air conditioning inside.
I'm sure it's possible.
Oh, anything's possible.
I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine being in the cocky outfit was too comfortable. And was it Yuva that sent us the video yesterday? Of,
gosh,
was it Miss Cocky having to be wheeled out?
Yeah, Mrs. Cocky, I think, had to be wheeled out during family weekend. It's a tough scene, but hey, age
party
getting
a little too hard.
Oh yeah, on Parents Weekend.
There were a few things that still need a little bit of cleaning up to be addressed coming away from Saturday. We'll dive into some of those coming up as we wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. Reminder, this week being South Carolina's bye week, Carolina calls not with Shane Beamer, but Lamont Paris and Derek Scott coming up on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, which you'll be able to listen to right here on the game in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. Dive into some things that could have been a little bit better on Saturday as we head into the bye week for Carolina football. It is the Extra Point and your Reaction Monday. Tyler and Jack on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Again, let us know your thoughts of Saturday's game. Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100. Again, for the most part, Carolina did exactly what you wanted them to do on Saturday night, and you feel good, all things considered, coming away from it. There were a few things to note on that certainly still need to improve as the year goes along. I'm still very concerned about the tackle spots. Case and Henry, Josiah Thompson. I think Henry was responsible for one of the sacks on Saturday night, and again, Thompson is still getting moved around quite a bit. And again, when you look down the road, Ole Miss, Alabama, you got some really nasty pass rushes coming at you that if you can't get those guys better on the edge, it could be very long days for Sellers in the backfield there.
Yeah, and Kaysen definitely did get blown back a little bit on that one sack that Robbie had to take. And yeah, I mean, look, offensive line play has been so-so. I feel like through the first month of the season with 16 sacks on the year, look, not all of them are on the offensive line. Some of them are on the tight ends. Some of them are on other position groups. Some of it's just on coaching and stuff. But I think overall, I mean, a lot of it is on the offensive line play, and it's been good at times, but other times it's still a work in progress. And you'd really like to see guys like Josiah Thompson and Casey Henry come along. They've shown flashes, but need some more consistency there. And yeah, I don't blame you for being a little bit worried.
And with Josiah Thompson, he's a true freshman. Look, he was not going to come in and be the best left tackle in the world as much as you wanted him to be. There's going to be growing pains. So that's understandable. Casey Henry's been around for a while, and I get it. He hasn't played a lot because of the injuries, but he, to me, has not lived up to the billing of how good he was supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because the hype was going to last year, man, this guy is the truth. And our guy Colin Taylor was the biggest, Casey Henry fan in the world. And I just haven't seen what I need to see out of him, to give me a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to improve as we get into SEC play here.
Yeah, I was high on him this season, too, coming off the injury and stuff. And I thought, okay, he's won the tackle job again. I think he's due for a big year, and you always root for the guy that has been coming off all these injuries and stuff and hope it can pan out. But yeah, this year it's been really a mixed bag, and okay, there's some times where it's good, other times where it's just not good enough. And I mean, you could say that about a lot of guys with this offensive line, but hey, you gotta keep moving forward, and like you said, it picks up from here, and you really got to bear down and block better.
Penalties on Saturday. South Carolina comes in as one of the most penalized teams in all of the SEC. 7 penalties on the night. Most of them still kind of your basic things that are worth cleaning up here. I know they had to delay a game on the first drive that ended up making the 4th down, 4th and 6. I think that was intentional, for Kai Kroger there. But after that, a couple holds. You got some unnecessary roughness, one on Brady Hunt, one on Demetrius Knight that got overturned from what we thought was going to be targeting. Another hold on Trevon Ball. So still some things you want to clean up there as, again, Carolina just has a little bit of a penalty problem this year. And, again, I know it's controversial last week against LSU, but some simple mistakes like the offsides and the false starts that you just can't do as you get into these very important games coming up.
Yeah, look, 7 penalties, whatever they are, it's not good enough in my opinion. Yeah, the one with the delay game, I think that was intentional. So it's like, okay, it's really 6, but at the same time, I mean, look, against a team that might be better than Akron, like an Ole Miss or something, you cannot be racking up this many penalties because it is going to hurt you. And I can bet you again, this will not be the last time we see officiating not be in South Carolina's favor. Like Ole Miss, probably going to get the benefit of the doubt. Alabama, all these bigger teams probably going to get a lot of help. And you just got to be prepared for it, and you got to do what you can to be as disciplined as possible to avoid any costly mistakes.
And lastly, this was the best game South Carolina had on 3rd down this season. Still not perfect, though. 35% went 5 of 14 on the game. Their average down and distance still 6.2, which is over 5. You're getting into that third and long territory, which again has kind of been a concern this entire season. And when you have a pass game, which we'll get into a little bit more here at the start of the next hour, you have a pass game that's not quite where you need it to be, continually putting your quarterback in situations where he has to throw in 3rd and long is obviously less than advantageous.
Yeah, and a part of it is they get backed up by penalties and stuff like holding calls and all that and false starts, but it's like they seemingly get backed up into long third down spots so many times, and it's because of what they do on first and second down that gets you to that point. And you'd love to convert more on these third down situations, but a lot of them are like, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, and it's like you're not going to get it every single time. It's much different than a 3rd and 5 spot. So that is something where you have to improve. I will say, though, I know we're talking about a lot of the rough stuff from Saturday. 4th down, though, I was surprised how many times they went for it and got it.
Beamer was surprised post-game on how many times that I guess he wasn't even thinking about it, how many times they went for it. Now, my question with that is, are you lacking confidence in Alex Herrera? Is that why you did that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more so, and I think Shane clarified this after the game, more just being aggressive and wanting to. That's why you saw Kai Kroger go for the 2-point conversion. They wanted
Shout out to him, man.
Yeah, because they had that in the works for a little bit. They wanted to just be more aggressive in this game and come out and just bring the hammer down in this game. And I mean, they did early on, and I think that's why you saw them go for it so many times on 4th.
Which, by the way, if you needed any microcosm for the difference in athleticism between South Carolina and Akron, the punter beat all the guys on their special teams unit to the edge to score that 2-point conversion.
It's crazy. And Kai, man, I mean, I'm seeing Yuva put out the Heisman talk for him. I mean, hey, maybe it's ramping up a little bit with how good he is at.
Well, and they came out in that formation after the first touchdown. Didn't get the look they wanted, so they went back to the normal kick. But for whatever it was on that second one, they decided to take it. And, it is kind of funny going for 2 against a team that, again, you kind of expect him to bludgeon anyway.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to get it, but, I see him, running towards the corner. I'm like,
they couldn't catch him. They weren't fast enough.
Yeah, he's quick. He's quick.
The legend of Kai Kroger continues to grow, and I'm sure there'll be a statue of him out in front of Willie B one day. Hour number 1 in the books. Coming up, hour number 2, we'll dive into the wide receivers and their performance on Saturday and what that means for the passing game going forward, as well as talk about what else happened around the world of college football on Saturday afternoon. It is the Extra Point. He is Jack Belcher. I'm Tyler Head, and on your Reaction Monday here on the game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. I tell you about them all the time, but we'll remind you once again that you always need to keep an eye out for things going on around your home, because if you notice some things that are a little bit odd, it could be some signs of serious foundation issues. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors and windows that might be sticking a little bit, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you're having any of these issues, you need to check out our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist right away so they can send a professional out to your home to evaluate your problems and get your home's foundation fixed right so you and your family can live comfortably going forward. Go online to schedule your appointment today at cantycanfixit.com. Again, go online to schedule your appointment today at cantycanfixit.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist. Hour number 2, welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central with you on your Reaction Monday, breaking down what we saw on Saturday night in Williams-Brice Stadium between South Carolina and Akron. 50-7 win for the Gamecocks. Have easily covered the, I think it was 26.5 point spread that it closed out at.
Yeah, I mean, they covered it with ease. And look, to me, I wasn't expecting Carolina to cover just because there were so many questions about this offense and stuff going into this game. But they certainly proved me and a lot of people that thought that way wrong, and I'm glad I did not bet on the spread.
We were talking about it in the press box on Saturday that after Collier gave up the long touchdown and made it 22-7 at that point in time, kind of looked at each other like, all right.
And they were getting the ball back.
And then Carolina fumbles at the end of the first half on the exchange on the fourth down there that Beamer was very frustrated about, coming off the field there. It just had like a feeling, and like you said, they get the ball to start the second half like, oh, man, if they drive down the field and make this a 8-point game to start the third quarter, might start sweating a little bit. Fortunately, that didn't happen. South Carolina handled their business. But that brief moment, we're like, oh, no, this could go the other way.
No, and I think even with all that, I don't think people thought, okay, like South Carolina's going to lose this game. I mean,
it's not the fear of losing. You just didn't want to get into like
you don't want to make
tight contest.
You don't want this to be Old Dominion 2.0. And for a time, I will admit that game felt a lot closer than it really was. Like, I mean, South Carolina was still playing starters going into the fourth quarter, and eventually, I'm glad they got a bunch of guys in there like they did. But I mean, that game. I mean, it was too close for comfort at one point, but eventually, that fourth quarter, man, 21-0 run, crazy.
Again, South Carolina very balanced on offense on Saturday, 276 yards through the air, 273 on the ground, and we saw by far the best passing performance we've seen this entire season. And when you look at, the wide receivers, Mazio Bennett, who continues to I don't know if you would definitively say he's been your number one guy so far this year. He's definitely been targeted a lot. He's made some big catches, touchdowns, including another one on Saturday night. My biggest thing, 5 for 5 on targets and completions. Everything that was thrown his way, he caught, and including that long touchdown that Robbie Ashford found him in the end zone for. Like, he's a guy we heard so much about and talked so much about in the offseason of what kind of impact he could make right away, and we're certainly seeing that now.
He's dynamic, man. He's quick. He's got a nice twitch to him. He's fast, and he's a really good receiver for this team. And I think there is some argument to be made that maybe he is number one on the depth chart in terms of wide receivers or whatever the case might be. But then again, I mean, I don't know. I would say Jared Brown's probably your top guy just because he's that veteran that – with a lot of experience. He's played fairly well so far after the Old Dominion game where he had that drop. But Mazio and him, they complement each other well, and we saw what things look like without Jared Brown in there. I think it's a 1A, 1B type scenario after this week.
And they're similar type of players, similar stature, similar skill set, and all that kind of stuff. But up to this point, nobody's truly set themselves apart. Now, again, the offense is heavily tilted towards the run. Through the first handful of games, it was 70% run and then, 30% pass. And I'm looking at this here. You're kind of in the same realm. We had 27 pass attempts on Saturday, 53 run attempts. So, kind of keeping to the same token there. So the opportunity to rack up a ton of receiving yards has not really presented itself as of yet because that's just not how the offense has been. But again, I like what I've seen out of Mazio Bennett this entire season, but particularly on Saturday night when, again, his number was called, went out there and did his job.
And again, he caught all 5 of his targets. That is very impressive. And yeah, I mean, look, you'd want the receiving numbers in general, not just for him, but overall to be a little bit higher for South Carolina. But again, I think they're coming along. We saw last week against LSU, that first half, I think, in my opinion, was probably one of the better halves I've seen out of this offense in a long time. But then Saturday, I mean, we got to see the perfect balance, like we said before, of the run game being good, the passing game being what it needed to be. And that's really a nice step in the right direction. I wonder what happens now in this month of October if things continue to trend upwards. What is next for this offense? Because they're doing a really good job right now at 3-1.
And then we finally got to see Gage Larvadain on Saturday, somebody that's been banged up to this point this season. And we were wondering through fall camp why we weren't hearing his name, because he's somebody that, through the spring that it seemed like had kind of set himself apart. And we're like, well, what happened to Gage Larvadain? Turns out he'd been banged up, and Beamer addressed that before the season started, but well enough to get out there on Saturday. Ends up making a couple catches for, let's see here, 2 catches for 79 yards, including a long of 44 there. So a nice debut for him, and I'm intrigued to see, especially after, another 2 weeks to get rested up and get healthy again, what his role in this offense is going to be now that he is seemingly, healthy enough to go.
And he adds another layer to this receiving core. I mean, look, he was one of those guys in the transfer portal that you brought in. You expected him to make an impact. What it was going to be, who knows? But so far, I mean, it has been amazing. But then again, he's been a little banged up. But this past Saturday was a really nice step in the right direction for him. And he was on the receiving end of some of those longer passes from Ashford. And he hauled that one in closer to the sideline, I think. It was like a 40-something yard gain.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I mean, they've got some nice guys out there. Now it's just about making sure they all continue to take strides and go forward.
Did he also draw that pass interference as well? Yes, he did.
Yeah.
In the second quarter.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And that ball was underthrown, but he played it exactly how you're supposed to play that. Go back into the defender and end up drawing the flag.
Yeah, no, I mean, good job on that play. That now I'm remembering it there. Yeah, it was right around midfield, was it not? Yeah,
right around there.
Yeah, that's textbook right there. And overall, man, I mean, look, I think you'd like to see a few more guys come along. I mean, Nick Harbor showed some flashes. He should have had more yards than he did because of a holding call on the O-line. And Delvon Campbell, I think, had, a 27-yard catch. I mean, he looked pretty good. What did Dre Jacobs finish with? That's
I do not see him on the stat sheet here. I do not believe he got to play on Saturday.
Yeah, and again, I think you want more of these guys to really come along, and it is what it is right now. But I'm also glad to see more of the tight ends get involved. Brady Hunt finally had a catch this weekend. Josh Simon only had 1 catch, but I think getting more of these guys involved is going to be critical, especially in that tight end game.
And that's the benefit of what this kind of game could do is allowing more guys to get on the field, trying some things that you may not have been able to try up to this point this season for the tight games that you were playing in for the most part. And if we see some of these guys get featured a little bit more as season rolls along, you can kind of point back to this game as maybe where Dow and this offensive staff kind of figured something out with them. And again, that's one of the primary goals when you play these kind of games is trying to learn a little bit more about what your team and what kind of things you can use to your disposal as the season rolls along as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, speaking of Dowell, he is calling very good games right now, I think. I mean, he's really at his best when the offense is able to mix things up like it has been. And we saw that on Saturday, really balanced and not afraid to call a pass play on 4th and 1. It's really good to see.
I like the fact that we're using a lot of motion as well. And again, when you have a quarterback in Robbie Ashford, who, again, going into the game, we didn't have a lot of faith in his throwing ability. When you're using motion, when you're doing jet sweeps and, keeping the defense on their toes a lot, that can certainly, help you improve in the passing game there. And I was pleased to see a lot of that on Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I wasn't expecting them to really go too extreme with the game plan on Saturday, but overall, they did what they needed to do and had a little bit of pizzazz to it.
And to sum it all up, as we've said many times, you're 3-1 right now. You're exactly where most people hoped or you were going to be at the end of September. Yes, the LSU game, knowing the context of how that all went down, sucks because you were right there and had the opportunity to win that. If penalties don't, you go the other way, or Sellers doesn't get hurt. But regardless, still the opportunities in front of you. Yeah, the next 2 games specifically are the hardest on your schedule. Then your likelihood of winning those games is pretty low. But if you play defense the way you've been playing, you're going to give yourself a chance. Maybe not the best chance, but you still give yourself a chance. And I look at A&M and Missouri and Vanderbilt and Clemson, and I look at some of these games that I feel a lot better about, compared to when we were talking about them in the summertime.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, a lot of people probably didn't pick this team to have an insane year, but 8-4, stuff like that, it's really not that far out of the realm of possibility. October's tough, but November, once you get there, and you're coming off another bye week at the end of October, I think you've got a really good chance to have a nice year here. And if they play the way they have been throughout this month, I like their chances in almost any game, honestly. It's just really impressive what they've been able to do so far this year.
And this year was all about taking a step back in the right direction, right? Like last year was a step back. You missed a bowl game and nobody was happy about it. And, I'm not saying you got to go out there and win 8 or 9 games. Be great if you did, but just getting yourself back to the postseason would be a step in the right direction and shows that, 2023 was just kind of a blip on the radar and that we're still continuing to grow and move in the right direction with Shane Beamer in this program.
Yeah, and last year, I know everyone wants to forget about it. It was a thorn in an otherwise good tenure so far for Shane. And look, it's good to see this team getting right back on track. And hey, one of the things about this program is they've gotten off to slow starts at the beginning of each season under him. But this year, 3-1 for the first time since 2017 to start out a season. So step in the right direction for him in this program. And now you got a good chance to carry it over against an Ole Miss team that is going to come in with a lot of firepower.
And with Carolina performing as they have in the first month, they are popping up in bowl projections. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. ESPN, both of the pickers here or predictors for the bowl game have Carolina in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl on Friday, December the 27th, 10:30 p.m. kick. That's very late, but that'd be a pretty cool bowl game to go to.
I think so, man. Just any bowl game for Carolina besides maybe Birmingham. I heard the Gator Bowl wasn't too great from a media standpoint. I did go and I had a fun time as a fan back then, but hey, Vegas or one of those bowls, that would be pretty wild.
I'll have to get Terry to fund us all a nice trip to Las Vegas if they end up going.
Thumbs up
go
from
to
Terry.
That bowl game. I think we could try and swing that if possible there. But a lot of football to be played between now and then, and more opportunities for South Carolina to continue to improve where that postseason destination is going to be. A lot happened across the world of college football on Saturday. We will try and dive into as much of it as we can because, oh boy, was it a wild weekend.
Oh boy, indeed.
That's coming up. It is a Reaction Monday. Tyler Head and Jack Peltry along with you here on your Monday on the Game. 34 here, Terry. All right. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Feltry along with you here on your Reaction Monday. By the way, coming up here in just a little bit, keep it locked right here. Going to have a chance for you to win some tickets. See Carolina take on Ole Miss coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend when they return off their bye. So be listening out for that opportunity here coming up in just a few minutes. It was a busy weekend around college football. All eyes were on Norman, Oklahoma, as Tennessee came in to the Sooners' house for their first ever SEC conference game. Now, I didn't have a lot of confidence that Oklahoma was going to win this game, but after this happened, I really knew it was over.
Trying to get one more play squeezed into this first quarter. The Amaliava off the play fake right down the seam, and it's caught by Dante Thornton. A foot race. They won't catch him. 66 to the house.
Nico Iamaleava finding Dante Thornton Jr. for a 66-yard touchdown in the first half there. Now, that only made it a, 10-3 game at that point in time, but Oklahoma could do nothing on offense. So any kind of gap that Tennessee was able to create was probably going to be enough. And look, Nico didn't go out there and set the world on fire. Went 194 yards with that one touchdown pass there, but they did enough. And Dylan Sampson, who's been a monster on the ground, went over 100 yards in all three games leading up to Saturday night, 92 yards on the ground and one touchdown. It wasn't the most explosive night for Heupel's offense, but they did what they needed to do against a very good Oklahoma defense.
Exactly. That's the key, man. They got the win, 25-15 in Norman, on the road, night game, college game day being there, kind of like, LSU did. And, Nico, that's touchdown he threw. That was a dart.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
That was crisp.
I watched that happen with Elijah next to me, who again is a Tennessee fan originally, and he was very excited for that one. And again, we kind of knew at that point in time the game was probably well in hand because Oklahoma could not do anything when they had the ball.
Sounds like they have a quarterback problem, though. I mean, Jackson Arnold, 7-16.
Here's the thing: this year was supposed to be all about Jackson Arnold. Last year, they had Dylan Gabriel, who was a perfectly fine quarterback, and they basically told him, hey, bud, maybe you should go somewhere else. This Arnold guy, he's our future. We're putting all of our eggs in this basket. We go find somewhere else to go. Dylan Gabriel's obviously gone on to Oregon, where he's with another college football playoff contending type of team. The Arnold experiment has not worked out well so far. There's been concern with Oklahoma's offense in every game so far this season. And Saturday night, I don't want to say it's the final straw, but Brent Venables eventually just said, you know what? You're not getting it done. Let's go to our true freshman, Michael Hawkins, who actually went out there and started moving the ball. He had 132 yards and one touchdown and led the team in rushing with 22 yards on Saturday.
I think I've seen this story somewhere before.
At Oklahoma, funny enough. Weird, right?
Yeah, just something comical about it. But hey, you gotta do what's best for the team, and if it's not working, move on to the next guy. So.
Yeah, and this is the danger you run into when you pay so much attention to star ratings, right? And what these guys were in high school. And yeah, there are plenty of 5 stars that turn out to be superstars, right? But there are some that don't. And right now, I haven't seen any kind of enough redeeming qualities from Jackson Arnold to think this is suddenly going to turn around. Is Michael Hawkins now their starter? He might be.
I think you probably go ahead and start him. I'm looking at Oklahoma's schedule here, waiting for it to load. But anyway, I know they have some, they go to Auburn this weekend, right? Yep. Auburn is kind of in a downward spiral. You could really use a win like this coming off of Tennessee. But then again, wouldn't shock me if you go in there and Auburn just pulls it off out of nowhere. But you're catching Auburn at a really good time from an Oklahoma standpoint. I think you can go out and probably run out there Hawkins and feel good about what he could do.
The defense is great.
Oh, yeah.
Their defense is good, which a Brent Venables coach team is kind of what you expect.
Totally.
It just feels like this is kind of like my thing with Iowa for so many years is like, man, Iowa's defense is always incredible, but their offense couldn't fight itself out of a wet paper bag. If you just had that side of the ball figured out, this team would be a powerhouse. And I'm kind of looking at that with Oklahoma like, man, defense is exactly where you needed to be. But if you don't have that offense, which is funny because for the Lincoln Riley years, they had all the offense in the world and no defense. Now you have all the defense and no offense. I don't know how good this team's going to be. And when I think about Carolina going on the road there in a month, it might be a 6-3 game, but I'd be taking Carolina right now if you asked me to pick.
That's the thing, man. I think I said at the beginning of the year, my predictions, that's one of the games I expect Carolina to upset because they seemingly find a way to do so every single year. Oklahoma, I mean, I don't know. I don't buy into them as much as like a Texas or something or a team like that joining the SEC. I mean, look, the Sooners have the Red River rivalry coming up. The SEC gauntlet is going to get tough, and I don't know, man. I just think Carolina could definitely go in there and pull off an upset.
And Tennessee, they look like a playoff team right now. Look, they still got Georgia. They still got Alabama. They have tough games on their schedule, but they look as advertised. And for Josh Heupel, a very important win for him going back to his old stomping grounds, 10 years after being fired there on Saturday.
Oh, man. I mean, look, as long as they take care of business in Athens, I think this team can go undefeated. Like, look, they get Bama at home in Neyland. That's going to be tough. Look, Alabama's been playing pretty well. We're going to see what happens this weekend against Georgia, but I don't know, man. I think Tennessee is the real deal, and it's not just their offense. Their defense is playing very well, too, and you got to give them a lot of credit as well.
Well, everybody's feeling good out there in Knoxville, not so much on the Plains in Auburn right now. 24-14 loss for the Tigers, taking on Arkansas on Saturday, and for like a brief moment. So we knew Peyton Thorne has struggled last year, struggled to start this year. They bench him. They throw in this Hank Brown kid against New Mexico last week, and he goes out there and has a phenomenal first career start. But there's a difference between playing New Mexico and playing an SEC team. He goes out there, throws 3 interceptions. Peyton Thorne comes in, throws an interception. They turn the ball over an additional time with the fumble. Auburn's in a state of despair right now. I don't know how else to put it. They do not have a competent thrower of the football on their roster.
I texted my cousin on Saturday who graduated from Auburn, when I saw some of the stat lines from the first half, and I'm like, what is going on with Auburn right now? And she replies to me saying, at least they are consistent with sucking. So, I mean, look, Auburn is, and we both thought they were going to be better this year.
I did. Yeah, I really did. I thought, man, this is a team that nobody's really talking about.
It's a mess.
Could, quietly go out there and have a 7 or 8 win season because I believed in Hugh Freeze's ability to develop a quarterback. And last year with Peyton Thorne wasn't great. But I thought, give him another offseason, let him develop the guy. And I'm not saying he was going to go out there and be a Heisman Trophy finalist, but I thought he could be better. And I was very wrong about that. And to the point, you can hear Hugh Freeze being very frustrated with what's going on. Because, again, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you're not going to do much.
And they've got so many problems going on there. The quarterback situation's a mess. Did you see 2 things? What Peyton Thorne said post-game about Hank Brown with getting him off of social media and stuff? And then also, not that this really has much to do with Auburn, but more so with Hugh Freeze, with Bo Wallace, former Ole Miss quarterback who beat Bama in 2014, saying, Hugh Freeze is basically a joke and all that. Just a lot going wrong for that guy.
Terry, let's cue this up really quick here. This is cut number 32. This is Hugh Freeze talking about the frustrations with his quarterback and his offense coming away from Saturday.
Unfortunately, this is what I know, and I know that there's people open, and I know that we're running the football. And we got to find a guy that won't throw it to the other team. And we got to find running backs that hold on to it. That's a huge play there. I mean, we're going in to score. I don't know, what was it, 7-0 then, or so it was 7-7, and our defense gets a stop, and who knows what happens. But the scheme is what most everybody in the country is running some sort of. But you've got to have good play at quarterback for sure to at whatever system you're going to choose.
And here's the thing. a lot of people look at that, and this, stems from the Bo Wallace thing from Saturday, who, of course, was his former quarterback at Ole Miss. You're saying, well, he shouldn't throw his guys under the bus. And in the beginning of his press conference, took a lot of accountability for this himself. I appreciate the honesty. Your quarterbacks suck. And he's saying that they suck. Like, he's not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. Like, yeah, I know it's a tough position to put your quarterback in by having the head coach call him out, but what else do you want him to do?
They're awful. I mean, Peyton Thorne really hasn't been anything great for Auburn. And Hank Brown, 7 of 13, 3 interceptions. It is a mess down there, and I really don't know. Does Auburn get to a bowl game this year? Because
I don't feel great about it.
No, I don't either. They are looking awful right now.
Speaking of looking awful, there was some ugly football elsewhere around college football on Saturday. We will break down what happened up in Chapel Hill in just a moment. Reminder, still the month of September. It's Hunger Action Month. The Game and Hardee's are teaming up for Hardee's Roundup. Just go to your participating Hardee's and round up your bill to the nearest dollar amount. All donations go to the Harvest Hope Food Bank for students. Our Sprung a Leak segment, a new feature coming up next here, and we'll tell you who that team that has sprung the biggest leak is, coming up next here on the Extra Point on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Feltree along with you here on this Reaction Monday. It's time for our new segment, Who Sprung a Leak? Brought to you by American Leak Protection. And oh boy, do we have a perfect first candidate for this award. Chapel Hill on Saturday. The Dukes of James Madison roll into town, and they took their lunch money, they took their girlfriend, took their car, and just kicked them in the face for good measure. 70-50, a 20-point win in 120 combined points on Saturday, with the Dukes walking out with the victory.
That was a game. If you told me that was a score, wouldn't have believed
I think it was actually a track meet, to be honest with you.
It's a basketball score right there, man.
All right, so question here, right? So you're our basketball reporter.
Oh, yeah.
How much more panicked would the Tar Heel fan base be if they lost a basketball game 70-50 to James Madison?
Oh, there would be.
Because you're clearly not shooting the ball well at that point.
No, it'd be a lot of panic. And you think panic is bad around here at any time? Just go drive up to Chapel Hill. Go see how bad it would be.
Combined 1,227 yards of offense between these two teams. Obviously, 120 combined points. Let's see. Here's your stat of the day. Carolina turned the ball over 5 times. James Madison only once. There were punts blocked. There was interceptions, fumbles, the whole night. Everything that could have gone wrong for North Carolina in this game went wrong.
That's how you lose a game right there. The amount of turnovers right there. It's not the fact you get up. I mean, part of it is the fact you get up 70 points, but a lot of those probably came off turnovers and stuff. And I mean, look, there's no excuse to lose a game like that. I mean, at the end of the first half, I mean, let's see. You gave up 53 points.
It was 53-21 at halftime.
And this is, I mean, James Madison is obviously a good program, but they're in a different spot now than they were last year with new head coach and stuff. And again, the Dukes are off to a good start, 3-0 on the year, and I'm sure they got paid a good bit to come play this game. And they're putting Mac Brown on not the hot seat, but considering leaving at least.
We'll let you hear from Mac Brown just a second here, but if you told any North Carolina fan going into this game, hey, Marion Hampton's got to run for 139 yards and 3 touchdowns, they would have felt great. Oh man, we're winning this game easily. Not quite the case.
No, and I would have felt good about that too. But something about these Dukes, man, the Sun Belt just loves to pull off a good upset. And I mean, hey, James Madison, they aren't going away quietly.
Let's hear from Mac Brown after the loss on Saturday, and he's known to take losses very hard, and this one certainly up there is probably one of the worst of his career.
Embarrassing day, shocking day. You shouldn't be at North Carolina and lose to a group of 5 team, period. There are no excuses. Our defense, who played great all spring, all preseason, and played outstanding for the first 3 games, looked awful today. We had communication problems. We had missed tackles. We had guys wide open for a touchdown. Our special teams, who had been better than the 3 teams we had played the first 3 games, had an onside kick that hit us in the chest and they get for a score. Had a block punt that they get for a score. Jacoby, I thought, played really, really well. He even had an interception for a touchdown right before the half, and Connor came in for 1 play and fumbled the ball, and that ended up being a touchdown. So it can only come back to one person, and that's me.
And he's mentioned Jacoby there. That's Jacoby Criswell, who's their 3rd option at quarterback. Of course, Max Johnson got hurt in the first game of the year against Minnesota a couple weeks ago, so they're down to their 3rd option. They didn't have a lot of confidence in their QB room coming into this year, but when you're down that far in your depth chart, you can only expect so much. And he had a great game from a statistical standpoint, 475 yards and 3 touchdowns, but those 2 interceptions, one of those being the pick 6 before halftime, certainly was the bad end of that.
And again, if you had told a North Carolina fan or just anyone watching this game that, hey, Criswell's going to throw for 475 yards, and that goes hand in hand with the Amari Hampton stat line, you would have thought this was a rout.
Sure.
But it's you scored 50 points. I mean, a lot of people will be like, okay, they're winning this game, no problem. But, 70 points, man, that's just ugly. And, again, the real stat line here is, Alonzo Barnett for James Madison quarterback, 5 touchdowns, no picks, and
7 touchdowns counted for because he ran for 2 more.
That's true. But through the air, man, that's where it that's where it counts. It's crazy.
So Mac Brown, after the game in the locker room, apparently told the team, "quote." He would resign. He would step down if he was the problem. Now, that was not him officially saying, "I'm going to step down and resign," but it sounds like things are trending in the wrong direction there at North Carolina. Look, when he got hired after Larry Fedora, Coach Hat, as I like to call him, kind of ran the program down, right? So you bring in a former national champion head coach to get your program a little foundation back underneath it, get it trending in the right direction, and then I thought, okay, he'll step away and let whoever take over and lead it from there. I think he signed through 2027 as of right now. I don't know if he makes it that far. Like, this could be the last year for Mac Brown in his second go-around in Chapel Hill.
And he is one of the all-time great head coaches. But, again, it's like North Carolina, I don't know what to make of them this year because it's like Max Johnson's out for the year. And, look, Max Johnson is a fine quarterback, nothing amazing. But, again, it's like I thought North Carolina would be pretty good this year in the ACC. But, I mean, look, Mac's 73 now. He's got to be ending at some point his college coaching career.
Well, and when this came out on Saturday, and again, he wasn't officially stepping away. He was just obviously frustrated in the locker room and telling his team that. A lot of people were drawing comparisons to Steve Spurrier and his exit here at Carolina 10 years ago. But let's think about it from that perspective. When you are, in your 70s, you only have a handful more years of coaching left to go. Fixing the problems with your program is going to take several years. Are you willing to invest that time? Do you think it's worth it? Because by the time this thing gets turned around, if it does at all, he's 75, 76. Like, do you just go ahead and cut bait now and say, you know what? I've done what I can. This is too much. I'm going to go ahead and call it a career and let somebody else take over and hopefully fix this thing where that can be more of a long-term solution? Because here's the thing. He's not going to be coaching this team in 10 years.
No, and there's so much more that goes into it, obviously, with recruiting and stuff, and just there's so many things that you have to do as a head coach. I don't know if it's worth it for him. The thing for me is if he's not enjoying what he does anymore, that's when I think you should know to pull the plug. Like, you can't just be doing the job just to do it. You have to really love what you do to do it. And I don't know, man, after giving up 70 points to a team that you should have beaten, no problem, it's just not good right now for them.
That'll definitely kill your spirit.
Oh, easily. It's going to change the whole vibe of this season. Hey, look, JMU, that's a good program right there. But he is right. It's a group of 5 team, and you shouldn't lose games to a group of 5. I don't care who it is, especially on your home turf, too. It's one thing if it's in Virginia, but it's on your home turf, man.
And for North Carolina, just kind of looking at their schedule here, very, very favorable. They have no ranked teams remaining on their schedule. Obviously, the Florida State game doesn't look as tough anymore. NC State doesn't look as tough anymore. Like, they had a very manageable schedule. And, of course, if you still run the table and win the ACC, you'd be in the college football playoff regardless. But you've now left yourself absolutely zero margin for error. Not that I think that they're going to be a team that's going to be in the running for the playoff, but this especially, I think kind of kicks them out of that contention.
Oh, easily. I mean, look, the ACC, for as not strange, but just not as great of a conference as other ones out there. I mean, look, UNC really does have an easy schedule. I don't think they're going perfect the rest of the way because I think that's what it's going to take. I don't know, man. I mean, they could easily go to Duke next week and lose, or this week and lose. That's the crazy part.
Yeah. By the way, Stanford tied for the lead in the ACC standings right now after that late victory on the road at Syracuse Friday night.
That was a gutsy win on Friday. I was not expecting that, but hey, credit to the Cardinal. They did it and they looked good in that game.
Yeah, no doubt about that. As the ACC is in a weird place. Congrats to Florida State for finally winning.
Congrats
for finally winning a game and not being completely incompetent and not letting the Bears turn it into Tallahassee.
That makes Auburn's loss to Cal look so much worse now, and just man, Florida State is a whole nother discussion.
We'll come back. We'll hit our oddities of college football and maybe give some tickets away as well as we wrap up today's edition of the Extra Point in Your Reaction Monday. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry here on The Game. Welcome back into the Extra Point on your Reaction Monday. That's right. It is time to give away some tickets to next Saturday's game. South Carolina and Ole Miss. Caller number 4 right now, 803-404-6100. Win yourself that pair of tickets. Before Terry answers the phone, it's time for the oddities of college football, and this happening Saturday night in Boulder, Colorado.
From one side, the Big 12 opener comes down to this play. Sanders gets the feet set toward the end zone for the game. It is caught by Wester, just like 1994.
Rarely do you see a Hail Mary be successful. Even rarer do you get a second chance at a Hail Mary after the first one's unsuccessful. Colorado down 24-31 in the final seconds in their Big 12 opener against Baylor. Shedeur Sanders launches one Hail Mary short of the end zone that I believe was to Will Shepherd that he drops. There's 2 seconds left on the clock. You think surely they're not going to get another shot at this. Launches a second one. Lo and behold, finds LaJohntay Webster for the touchdown just to end regulation. They then proceed to go win the game in overtime. By the way, Colorado's now 3-1.
I don't know, man. Watching that game, I was left speechless watching. I was like, what just happened here? Seeing the guy drop the ball on that first throw, I'm like, oh, there's no way Colorado's winning this game. And then I see the highlights that Shedeur threw another bomb. This time it was caught. Insane. And what a heads-up play by Travis Hunter, by the way, to force that fumble to end of the game. Mm-hmm. Really, I mean, look, Colorado's 3-1. Right or wrong, whatever you feel about them. I mean, that's 3-1. That's crazy.
By the way, you want to take a guess at how many times Shedeur Sanders got sacked on Saturday?
Gosh, probably like 5 or 6 times.
8.
Oh my gosh. So, man.
That offensive line is not good.
If you think Carolina has offensive line problems, just go to Boulder for a few days and go check out that offensive line because it was bad last year. It's awful again this year. It
is pretty bad. We'll stay in the Big 12 here. Sonny Dykes, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Head coach at TCU, former head coach at SMU. Well, he got himself ejected as they were playing SMU on Saturday en route to a loss for the Horned Frogs. So there was a holding call on a kickoff that he was not pleased with. So he is frustrated with the officials after that call is made. They run a play. Then he's right back barking at these officials again. Believe he dropped an F-bomb on them as well. And they basically run him at that point in time. And he's walking off the field to the delight of many people there in Dallas, who, of course, are not pleased with him leaving SMU a couple seasons ago. We don't see a lot of head coaches getting ejected.
No, we don't. And the manner in which he got ejected was just, it is an oddity of college football, right? And, of course, it had to happen when he's back there at SMU, now at TCU as the head coach there. Just very strange.
Quickly, let's hear cut number 31 here, Terry. This is Sonny Dykes addressing what happened on Saturday.
I got kicked out of a game. It's my first time that's ever happened. Certainly uncharted territory for me. Apologize to our players and our fans. That should never happen. Was disappointed it happened. Thought it was maybe unwarranted, but it happened, and that's my responsibility to make sure that never happens. So 100% my fault. Obviously, I got to be better.
By the way, they gave up 66 points to SMU in this loss on Saturday, by the way.
Awful.
So let's remember this, by the way. At the beginning of the last calendar year, in January of 2023, TCU was playing for a national championship.
That's right.
Since that game, they've gone 7-9.
Just crazy. Crazy how much of a step back you could take from being right there. But I guess 65-7 against Georgia really has its impact.
And look, Max Duggan was a special quarterback. Quentin Johnson was a great wide receiver. You lost those key pieces, and you did not supplement for that afterwards.
You should be able to recruit heavily after that, especially in a state like Texas.
You would think.
Yep.
You would think.
Guess not.
Oh, well, and Dykes had to watch the rest of that awful game from the locker room. Wanted to hit this. So if you watch enough any football on TV, typically the hard camera, the one that's fixed on most plays, is on the home team side, to where when you're at midfield, you're typically looking at the home team's logo right side up. Well, Louisiana played Tulane on Saturday at their stadium, which is apparently being renovated. So the camera was on the opposite side of the field, to where I'm looking at the upside down Ragin' Cajuns logo at midfield. Very bizarre, because we're not used to seeing football fields look like that.
No, it's so strange, and it is, again, I'll give Louisiana some credit here. I mean, like, they are going through some major renovations at their stadium right now, but it is just something you never have. I don't think I've ever seen before, and probably one of the last times we'll see that. Probably.
Last one here. We mentioned Auburn and that disaster of a game they had against Arkansas the other day. Right before halftime, Arkansas and Auburn traded interceptions basically on 3 consecutive plays. So Hank Brown throws an interception with about 50 seconds left for halftime. Taylon Green with Arkansas proceeds to throw an interception himself right after that. And then immediately after that, when Auburn gets the ball back, 2 plays later, Hank Brown throws yet another interception, this one a little bit closer to the goal line.
Oh, just awful. And Hank Brown, look, he had 3 interceptions in that game. Not looking good for the new quarterback in town after Peyton Thorne, but just what I mean, 2 teams that, Arkansas is not in a great position here. I mean, they're 3-1 right now, but I mean, look, it's
if they hadn't have blown that game against Oklahoma State,
they'd be like South Carolina right now in a position where they both should feel like they're 4-0, but alas, they're not.
Hey, Sam Pittman, he might just save his job after all. Who knows?
He might.
Off to a decent start. That'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. It's been your Reaction Monday. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. We'll get Wes and Chris's reaction to South Carolina's 50-7 win over Akron on Saturday night. We'll see you later on this week, Jack.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
That'll do it for The Extra Point here on the game. Welcome in, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark, along with you on your Reaction Monday. Coming off of a pretty comfortable Saturday night in Williams-Brice Stadium, Gamecocks 50-7 win over Akron. Covered the spread pretty easily, and now you head into the bye week at 3-1 and feeling pretty good overall.
Akron, they were who we thought they were.
They were a team that plays football and not very well.
And Gamecocks did what they were supposed to do. And, you know, I could see people being a little gun-shy. Backup quarterback. Rocket Sanders goes out early. Injuries quickly becoming a part of the discussion. And, hey, they just took care of business. Offensively, I thought they had a great plan for Robbie. You can't help but be very happy for Robbie, too. Obviously, it's a guy entered college with very, very high expectations, I'm sure, for himself. Dual sport guy, playing baseball, playing football. Has transferred multiple times now. And, you know, I thought the staff did a really good job of just designing everything around his skill set, making him comfortable. And then, you know, there's a difference between being the backup quarterback going into a game and getting limited reps versus, hey, you're our guy. We're going to build this thing around you for this week. And, you know, I thought his confidence kind of grew. It appeared as the game went on. The guys really rallied around him. Very happy for him. Great game. And, you know, I thought defensively, man, they were one play again. They were one play, I think, away from just an absolute dominant performance on defense. You did have the one, you know, I don't even know, do you call that a bust? It's not really a coverage bust in terms of like a mental thing. It was almost just like a misplay on the ball there by Judge. They did have another play where Bakari let the guy behind him as well that could have been kind of that second explosive play allowed, but the quarterback just missed it. So for the most part, the defense was locked down, gave up about 150 yards of offense, less than 10 first downs, about 3 yards of carry from the actual running backs, and you know, they basically just did what they were supposed to do, frankly, on all sides of this thing.
Yeah, defensively, that Judge play, I think I wrote this afterwards on yesterday after watching the game back. I mean, it was just a fluke, basically. You know, like he was right there. He saw the ball. He was on the receiver. He's tracking the ball. Just kind of mistimed the jump, misplayed the ball, and guy almost dropped it, you know, fumbled it basically around going into the end zone. And you did have the one other play. But other than that, I mean, I think they rattled the quarterback. We didn't see a lot of the other quarterback until late in the game. Remember, there was a lot made. Some people made a lot two-quarterback system. We tried to kind of temper that down. From what I remember, I know you watched back the game even more than me, Wes. I don't think they ran that a lot at all, really, with the two-quarterback thing. You could tell Akron came in saying, we have no chance to play in the box with South Carolina. They were not going to line up and say, well, we'll just run our offense. They came out with the Emery and Henry. You know, they had the linemen on either side. Sometimes they would take a look, and then they would bring them back in. But they were clearly trying to play this thing on the perimeter. South Carolina had 2 sacks, I think. They were trying to get the ball out very quickly, which they did. But when you do that, you limit your potential for explosive plays. They couldn't run the football. South Carolina tackled very well. First time they ran that Emery and Henry play, they tried to run the football, and it got blown up. You know, I don't even know if they might have gained a yard on the play. Didn't go anywhere.
By the way, thanks for informing me of what that's called. I had no idea. It had an official name. But I'd seen it before, and I was like, I saw it years and years ago, and I didn't know what the name of it was. But I was like, that is definitely an idea. That's if you're Joe Moorhead. That is something.
Well, the reason, if you're a Gamecock football head, you know it's Emery and Henry because it was a Spurrier thing. Mm-hmm. He would, and he took it from Emery and Henry from I don't know what year. They ran it a long time ago, and he would every now and then just bust that thing out. And so that's why if you like have watched Carolina football for a long time, you see that, you're like, oh, Emery and Henry, I know that. Yeah. It's like a weird little just wrinkle. I feel like that Gamecock football heads know. And was not successful for Akron. But, I mean, dude, I felt they had a couple little wrinkles like that, but for the most part, I mean, they were just saying get the ball out quick. And South Carolina, which some of this, let's be honest, is opponent dependent, but we saw all those missed tackles against LSU. We did not see those on Saturday night.
Only 3 on the game for Carolina.
Yeah, 3 according to PFF. But the eye test matches that as well. I feel like I don't even remember many situations where they just missed a tackle and a guy's off and running. Like it was like Akron. I think Carolina a lot of times was okay just dropping back, keeping everything in front. Akron said, all right, we're going to take the underneath. And Carolina said, okay, we're just going to come up and tackle you and force another punt. I think they were 3 for 13 on third downs. Carolina was not great on third down either, but most of their third downs put them, the ones that they did not convert, put them in 4th and short. So they just said, all right, we're going to stay on the field. They were 4 for 5 on 4th downs. The one miss was just because of the bad snap there. I don't want to say it was bad snap, bad exchange. I don't know where the blame would go, but they were under center on that, which is something we don't really see them do a lot of. And so, yeah, Carolina was able to stay on the field. Akron was not. The yardage was obviously heavily skewed towards Carolina. First downs, I think it was 27-9, which is kind of an insane number. And Carolina ran the ball. They threw the ball. They were good on special teams. It was not a perfect game by any means, but in terms of just doing what you're supposed to do, they did. And, that was that. Akron was just outmatched, I think.
I think there was some people may laugh and say key point in the game. They won 50-7, but Shane Beamer pointed this out in the post game. You've got South Carolina going up 15-0. Beamer was very animated, by the way, after that 2-point conversion. I think my kind of theory, I think Beamer was a little frustrated. Akron kept having players go down, like in the middle of the play, and he was giving it to the refs and was very unhappy about that. So he said afterwards that they had decided they were going to go for 2. So they went for 2. They got it. I think that was
they
vindicating.
They gave the look in the first PAT and then kicked the extra point. So
that's right.
Whatever they saw the second time around went for it. And by the way, that was my thing. If you wanted to see the talent discrepancy between Carolina and Akron, Kai Kroger beat all those guys around the edge on
Kai
that 2
Kroger.
point. Now, he is speedy, but again, you would think you'd have some fast guys on defense to be able to, meet him at the point there, and he just outran him.
Yeah, but I mean, the key point, though, is Beamer alluded to this. South Carolina's up 15-0. You give up that explosive play, really the only play you gave up, 42-yard touchdown. Then you get the ball back. You had a couple nice plays. You're in Akron territory. You get the 4th and 1 with 17 seconds left. So you're thinking, maybe you got a shot or two in the end zone. You kick a field goal, something like that. Instead, you fumble the snap, right? So now you're going in 22-7, and you're like, You come out, Akron gets the ball, they have to punt, but then you punt, right? So you're kind of like, all right, are you going to let Akron hang around a little bit too long here? But pretty quickly, they were able to answer that, go score a touchdown, go up 29-7, and the route was on from there. So Beamer pointed out, hey, there have been a few times where we've started fast, given up a big play, I think he said screwed around or something like that, and let the opponent stay in. And that was kind of some of the concern here, and it didn't end up happening.
Some guy near me was very ticked off about that delay of game on the first PAT.
Right.
And I was like, dude, calm down. They clearly were thinking about going for 2, didn't like the look, and then we're like, okay, this is okay.
Yeah, it ended up being okay.
And then they were upset about the delay of game there was a punt where Carolina just took the delay of game.
That was on the first drive.
Instead of burning a timeout, and they were upset about that as well. It's like, we need to calm down, guys.
We're all right. If those are the kind of penalties we're upset about this week, we'll take it.
Yeah, but what did y'all think of the game plan for Ashford? Like, just getting quite a few different little, I feel like, diverse runs in there. We saw some what is the modern day version of triple option.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think when they go to those looks, we've started to see Gage Larvidan emerge a little bit as a receiver, but he's really good, I feel like, in some of that motion stuff as well. And I thought they did a really good job of, using motion to kind of scheme some different looks up. There was a 4th and 1 touchdown throw to Juju McDowell where they had all kinds of stuff going on in terms of pre-snap and just had Akron completely confused. Touchdown pass early on. I think that one made it 22-7 in the first half. And, that's another play right there. You mess that up, then, hey, they have the ball back, and it's only a one-score game, I think, I guess, at that point. So they had some really good stuff, I think, in terms of what they schemed up offensively.
Yeah, well, going into the game last week, we talked about, hey, Robbie Ashford, not the best thrower of the football. What are you going to be able to do to make him comfortable? And, of course, they kept it close to the vest, but he was taking reps with the ones throughout the entire week. We kind of built that game plan around him. And when I look at his numbers breakdown, so he's 15-21 for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. 11 of his 15 completions were 10 yards or less past the line of scrimmage. So you kept everything relatively short. Did hit some longer stuff, found Mazio Bennett for that one longer touchdown, and did have some deeper throws, which were nice. Again, you're going up against a weaker secondary in Akron, but I thought Dow Loggins schemed him up for the best chance of success, which is what we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, he really did. And I mean, the throw down the middle for that touchdown was perfect. You had a ball he threw up for Gage that Gage caught. You had another one that wouldn't be reflected in that, but that created a pass interference.
Which was a little underthrown, but he did what he needed to do as a receiver. Yep,
you had another one downfield to Nick Harbor that was actually completed but came back because of a illegal block below the waist, I think. So I thought they did just enough of throwing the ball down the field as well on top of, Akron was struggling just to, I think, set the edge and do everything they needed to do against the running game in the first place. So once you added any element of downfield passing, I think that was lights out. Like, I think Carolina, even if they didn't hit those downfield throws, could have just won like a game sort of like Chris and I predicted, like a low 30s to 7 or 10, something like that. Like they could have just grinded it out and won kind of an ugly but convincing win. I think once you started hitting some throws down the field, that's when that's what sort of allowed you to expand it out and beat them, 50-7. And because you did not have the benefit of a bunch of forced turnovers. That was the thing Akron did, is they just said, look, we're going to drop back, we're going to dump the ball off short, make South Carolina rally up and tackle. They didn't really put the ball in danger a lot. But in my opinion, other than the just few little wrinkles, I don't know that Akron really gave them much of a chance to actually win the game either. It was, in a lot of ways, like, I don't know if they had stuff called down the field and there just was not time to do it, so they just dumped the ball off. It did not feel to me like Akron was able to do anything to actually threaten South Carolina offensively.
I thought Ashford's best throw of the night was the throw to Larvidan, like kind of that corner route. I mean, that was dropped right in there, and defenders around, not like Gage was just running wide open. Like, he had some defenders kind of bracketing him. That was a really good throw. Mazio, just great route. Like, when you watch Mazio run routes, he does not look like a freshman because there's an art, there's some nuance there. Mm-hmm. Really, really good route there to free himself up, and then a really good throw. So, yeah, I mean, I think Robbie gave Carolina everything that they needed in this game to win.
Plenty more breakdown from Carolina's 50-7 win over Akron. We'll do that as the show rolls along. Reminder, it is Hunger Action Month, and Game and Hardee's teaming up for the Hardee's Roundup. Just go to your participating Hardee's and round up your bill to the nearest dollar amount. All donations go to the Harvest Hope Food Bank for students. There was a bit of an injury concern coming away from Saturday. We'll dive into that next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
Y'all, I'm checking out Integrated Media's Instagram account here. If you want to go check it out too, Integrated Media Columbia. Put underscores in between those. Integrated_media_Columbia. You can also check them out on Facebook, Integrated Media Columbia. They've been to my home and they've been to Wes's home. They can do anything that you can dream of from an audio-visual standpoint at your home. Some awesome examples of things that they've done at homes and businesses here in the past. Anything from smart home systems to security cameras to if you just need something as simple as a television mounted, they can do that for you. But, man, they can also do huge projects like the one I'm looking at, a theater room. Got a 133-inch screen up here with a Sony 4K projector that's brighter than Sony TVs.
You doing
this
that
thing
next,
is awesome.
Chris?
That's on the list. Longer term, integratedmediainc.com, 803-948-8327.
2-yard line with 5:24 to go in the first quarter. 13th play of the drive. Handoff inside and into the end zone. Touchdown, Carolina.
Untouched.
Touchdown, Oscar Attaway. The first of his career in the garnet and black.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyrod West Mitchell, Chris Clark has the call on Saturday. Oscar Attaway finding the end zone for the Gamecocks as we had quite a few running backs take the field on Saturday. Unfortunately, we did have a bit of an injury concern with Rocket Sanders early in the game. Gets rolled up, making a block early on in the game, ends up leaving the game with a bit of a limp there, but it sounds like everything is okay with him. But when you talk about these kind of games, the one thing you don't want is anybody else to get hurt, and sounds like South Carolina is fortunate to avoid a serious injury there.
Yeah, when you saw him kind of hobble off, that was like the last thing you wanted from this game, I feel like. And then so at that point, you had essentially QB1, RB1, and your top wide receiver on the sidelines. And so that's obviously not what you wanted if you're South Carolina. Luckily, it feels like they have not had like just that complete rash of injuries like they did last year, but they have had some injuries to specific players that you did not want to obviously have. So ankles are inherently a little bit unpredictable. Certainly they seem confident that he'll be back and ready to go for Ole Miss, but bye week certainly coming at a good time. And if you're Carolina, you hope that those early feelings about him prove to be accurate in terms of Rocket being able to be back for Ole Miss, because obviously as a running back, your ankles, incredibly important.
I'm sure we'll get into this as the Ole Miss game gets a lot closer, but Rocket Sanders has his career high came against Ole Miss in 2022. 24 for 232 and 3 touchdowns.
That'd probably be a pretty good game next weekend.
Much different Ole Miss defense, though.
Much
least.
different. Yeah, a lot of differences there. I was excited to be able to see some of the other running backs. And remember, guys, we did the buy or sell. Mm-hmm. What did we say, 4? Ended up being a bunch of
more than 4.
Everybody but DJ Braswell, I believe.
Yeah.
Even Bradley Dunn got out there.
Bradley Dunn got out there. Bradley Dunn, scholarship running back now, of course, as of this year for South Carolina. Y'all, I liked, and not to diminish what anybody else did, Jawarn Howell, color me intrigued. He was, I think, the third guy up, had a touchdown run. Look, everything that we're saying today here on Reaction Monday is it's Akron. We know, so here you're going off how does a guy look, physical traits. Jawarn Howell's a big kid who can run. He's got a little wiggle to him. He runs hard. He's still young. So, you look at him and you don't go, okay, he's kind of a depth guy because you got him for a year. He's a senior. No, this is a guy who's in his second year of college ball. So, had 8 yards a carry last year at a lower level. This isn't his year where he's going to make the biggest impact, but you start thinking about the future after you lose some other guys like Rocket Sanders. Interesting player. Liked what I saw from him. Yeah, no, when you definitely look at the future of the running back room, you saw some of that, on display on Saturday. And Attaway really stepped in, being the featured back, goes out there, gets a couple touchdowns, and we've already seen him, play a little bit, as the season's gone on so far, but especially with, Rocket Sanders, going out on Saturday, he stepped up well. But when you look at Matthew Fuller as well, 2 guys that are expected to be the future of this running back room, again, grain of salt because it is Akron. You saw good things from both those guys on Saturday that give you a lot of optimism for what this room's going to be when you don't have Sanders, when you don't have Attaway and guys like that anymore.
Yeah, Fuller's a good-looking kid, man. Big, physical, well put together. I mean, we've heard that, like no surprise, but this is one of our first real opportunities to see him actually go out there and do it. And yeah, it was late in the game. You got backups in kind of across the board at that point. We got to see really the second team O-line for the most part. We got to see some of the third team O-line, which we talked about in the lead up, that just getting those guys on the field, you could see, how excited were the players for a Davis Bevel to get in there and throw a touchdown pass? How excited were they for Connor Cox to have a touchdown, catch and run? And then just all the different things that go along with getting your backups in and then getting their backups in, I think were on display. Maybe would have liked to get them in there just a little bit earlier, but for the most part, the defense was able to force so many punts that they didn't have to play a lot of snaps. So, you look at it, you're like, all right, midway through the third quarter, time to get some backups in there. It's not like they were out there for 90 snaps. Like the defense was able to get off the field so quickly that, it was a fairly easy day at the office for them. Don't think I recall many guys hobbling off or having many issues. I know Michael Goodwine on defense had an injury. Michael Smith on offense was dealing with the hamstring. Mazio was on the bike a little bit, but he came back in there and was fine. So really, Rocket was the big main issue there, and it was just a freak thing. He's actually blocking on the play and got rolled up by somebody.
Yeah, defensively, that was another thing that stood out from the game that's certainly a positive. South Carolina hasn't had it easy this season at all in terms of, you look at Ole Miss, for example, who they're going to play. They've had a few weeks of just kind of roll the ball out there and, pretty easy day at the office. South Carolina hasn't had one. You were hoping that game one was going to be that. Did not end up being. That's their fault, right? I mean, they won the game, though. Game two against Kentucky, you were able to pull some guys later once you pulled away. But that was an SEC game. You couldn't empty the bench in the third quarter or anything. And then you obviously had a very tight game, very physical, lots of snaps that you played against LSU. So it was nice to go have this game, particularly when you butted up against a bye week. That's a bonus. A lot of guys on the Gamecock defense where you look at the snap counts and they're at, they played 25 snaps. They played 30 snaps. That's kind of exactly what you wanted in this game. And I think when you think about, hey, go beat this team like you should, and Akron, go beat it in Akron 50-7, it's not so you can go look at the score and say, we won by 43 points. It's so that you can have that easy day at the office, pack it in,
right,
and then be putting walk-ons in the third and fourth quarter. That's what you want out of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty comfortable day on Saturday at Williams-Brice Stadium. We'll continue to break this down as show goes along. Reminder, this is a bye week, so Carolina Calls not featuring Coach Beamer. This week would be Lamont Paris and Derek Scott coming up on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, which you can listen to right here on the game in Columbia and Myrtle Beach. We'll dive into from Saturday night's win over Akron, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, guys. Once again, let me tell you about our friends over at Gold Line Framing. They want to handle any and all of your custom framing needs. We've been over at Gold Line Framing in person several times now, and Kendall Walsh, Joni James, they take great care of you, and they take great care of us. They want to take care of all your custom framing needs. That could be diplomas, original artwork, canvas, jerseys, flags. Maybe you've got a signed print from your favorite athlete that you want to take to the next level and put it on the wall in the man cave. 511 12th Street, West Columbia is the address. In store, they've got a lot of other gift ideas that could be from their art gallery, from their home decor, even furniture. They've got some great hats, which Tyler actually purchased last time we were in there, and have the Palmetto State flag on them, garnet black or white. Call them today, 803-739-1337. They're open Tuesday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and then Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. 803-739-1337.
Hunts in the backfield, 3 wide receiver set. Ashford, play action inside, wants to throw. Now going to go down the middle, got a man wide open. Caught! Touchdown, Carolina! Touchdown! Mazio Bennett from 30 yards out. I don't know if we can question Robbie Ashford or not. That's as good as a post route as you'll ever see. The extra point could make it 14-0 Carolina with 53 seconds to go in the first quarter.
Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. That was the call on Saturday for the second touchdown where Robbie Ashford did find Mazio Bennett 30 yards for the score there. Mazio Bennett caught all 5 of the balls thrown his way on Saturday for 71 yards, including that 1 touchdown. And this was a game without Jared Brown. We've seen Mazio Bennett get his number called a lot this season, really kind of stepped up into that number 1 receiver role on Saturday. And, through 4 weeks continues to impress as you guys and many expected him to do this season.
Yeah, he's a very developed, very advanced wide receiver for his age. And I think we knew that coming in, and we knew he's a great competitor. He has really good hands. You watch the way he catches the ball versus, some other guys. Like, he has a very I don't know if I want to say innate, maybe it's just built up over time, but he has a confidence in his hands. Like, you never see him catch the ball with his body. He rarely sort of juggles the ball. Like, he has very soft hands. He plucks the ball out of the sky and, just really moves, like Chris said, like more of like a junior or senior out there in terms of how he operates and gets open. So that's been fun to watch. But also, like I said earlier, I think the continued emergence of Gage Larvadain, who really was the talk of the spring in terms of the newcomers, and then he was banged up. Then Jared Brown started coming along, and so then as the season sort of came along, it was, Jared Brown might be the top receiver. We've seen that at times. Now, he, of course, is banged up, missed this past week, and so I'm curious, as hopefully all these guys get healthy, and as Mazio gets more and more comfortable out there, not that he showed any signs of not being comfortable, he's kind of been comfortable from the start, can you maybe feel like you have 3 or 4 guys that can go out there and get open? We'll see what happens when they step back into SEC play here in a couple weeks, but some potential good signs for this wide receiver core.
Yeah, they've got a lot of guys who have played a lot of football. Not Mazio, obviously, because he is a freshman. He has not played a lot of football, but, Delvon Campbell and Jared Brown, who you hope you get him back for the Ole Miss game. Gage, you've got guys who are in their 3rd, 4th, 5th. Delvon Campbell's a 6-year guy. So can you get, kind of like the quarterback position, can you get incrementally better? I don't think anybody was looking at this thing saying, let's juxtapose it against this, like edge. You're looking at edge going, you signed a 5-star freshman, you got Gilbert Edmond back, you brought in Kyle Kennard. You had pretty high expectations there. I think when you looked at the receiver room, you said, Mazio will probably be able to help them as a freshman. You've got these other guys who are really experienced, but I don't think the expectations were as high at receiver, if that makes sense. You just needed them to be solid, and I think, frankly, they've probably got some work to get there. They've got some work to do to get to, can you be pretty good there? Now, I think what we saw in Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, 4, that's not a finished product because Gage has been banged up. He's shown some signs of continuing to come along. Jared Brown, I think we've seen that, but he obviously missed this game. So Mazio Bennett's going to get better because he's a freshman. So I think you're still kind of feeling your way through things there. We're not going to get to Game 12, I don't think, and say, man, this is the best. This is Ohio State's receiver room. I don't think anybody's saying that. But they do need to be better. They've shown some signs. There have been some glimpses. I think it's just about being more consistent. And when this team can throw the football down the field and make explosive plays, they're a lot better offense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We know this offense is built primarily on the run, and once again, Saturday it was the majority of runs compared to passes. But as the season goes along and that confidence begins to build and the just chemistry between Sellers and his receivers builds, you wonder how much more passing to take place within this offense if they feel comfortable enough to do that, because there's going to be teams like your Alabamas and your Ole Misses that might shut you down on the ground or at least limit you quite a bit, where you're going to have to turn to the pass game, and you hope it's good enough at that point in time to make you competitive.
Yeah, and as always, you're going to have some balance. You're going to have it against some of those schools. And to do so, I think part of that is getting Sellers back healthy and back in there. And, you know, as much as we all, I think, sort of agreed, like, hey, unless he's literally 100%, you were going to be careful with him this week. But that missed practice time, like that does matter, I think, for a young quarterback. So how quickly can you get him back out there? I think continuing to build chemistry and rapport with these wide receivers is an important aspect, because how much of the offseason were we also talking about the fact that you don't know who your best three are? Like, you were waiting on three guys to emerge, and now you kind of even have this thing where, let's say Gage is emerging before our very eyes. Like, let's not gloss over the fact he started on Saturday. So that means he's been coming along in practice as well. So can you structure it where you get Mazio, Gage, and Gage, for a smaller guy, has shown he can go make plays down the field and play on the outside. Can you have Jared, Mazio, and Gage on the field at the same time? Also, a guy who, you look at Dre Jacobs. It's been a little bit quiet out there lately. So can you find ways to maybe re-implement him into the game plan, get him the ball? I thought this might be a week where he gets going, but instead it was Gage who made a couple plays down the field. So I'm curious to see how this thing continues to maybe develop as we go along. And there are some pretty good signs here, but you obviously are going to need them to continue to take steps forward. If you're looking at Ole Miss, this is a rebuilt defense. They're much better up front than they have been in recent years. But there are still some little things where you look at it, you say they may be susceptible in the passing game if you can protect it up front. They're a little bit handsy. They're a little bit grabby in the secondary as well. I know we'll get into all the little details for that game next week, but you're going to get a nice little test stepping back into SEC play, but a test where you're saying on paper, maybe an opportunity for the receivers.
We might get, Tyler, I don't know what you got planned for the final segment, so we might spill this over into that, but curious for y'all's thoughts on what we saw up front. It's funny, offensive line play and pass protection and even running the football, like just up front play on offense is always, it always has to be a very nuanced conversation. It frequently isn't, like if a sack is taken or if a play goes for a negative play or for 1 yard, and I'll include myself in this, where does your mind go? Offensive line.
Yep.
They screwed up. Sometimes that's very true. Sometimes it's not. And so you look at, the ugliest number for this Gamecock football team through 4 weeks is they are tied, ironically, with Old Dominion for the highest sacks allowed total in the country. They've got 16. Looking through some PFF numbers earlier, they have 12 sacks listed under protection. So I assume that's when they credit a player like they were directly responsible for allowing that sack. And I think 8 of them are on the offensive line. So that basically means half and half. Now, if you could get through 4 games and you had 8 sacks on your offensive line, that's not wonderful. But what you also see is tight end, and Beamer's alluded to this, tight ends, backs, quarterbacks holding on to the ball too long. Here's what I know about it. I'm not going to, without knowing what the assignments are on every play, maybe I can't assign blame. I do know that number's got to get better. The sack total's got to get better. The protection in general, even if there's not a sack, has to get better because we've seen some negative plays. We've seen them get backed up. That's an area that as you get into the back third of the season, 2/3 of the season, that's really got to improve.
We'll hit on that as well as some other minor things to be concerned about coming away from Saturday as we head into the bye week. South Carolina sitting at 3-1 after the win over Akron this past weekend. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs and your reaction Monday here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, West Mitchell. Chris Clark along with you for a few more minutes here on your Reaction Monday. As Chris alluded to there at the end of that last segment, still some concerns when it comes to pass blocking for South Carolina, particularly at the tackle spots, and referencing these numbers from Pro Football Focus and, you know, the sacks they attributed to the offensive line, most attributed given to Case and Henry with 3 total on the day. And of course, you're also still having some growing pains with Josiah Thompson on the other side of the playing the left tackle spot. These are 2 areas that concern me quite a bit, especially as you get set to face in a couple weeks one of the best teams in the SEC when it comes to getting to quarterbacks, that being Ole Miss with 13 sacks so far in the season. Yes, they haven't played the best competition, but still, we know how good that defensive front is, and I don't know what kind of fight this offensive line is going to be able to put up against that.
Yeah, that's definitely a matchup you're going to go ahead and circle, I think, going into this one. I believe, in my opinion, the run blocking has shown some improvements. I think all of it is improved from last year, but for them to have the same 5 guys out there, which was obviously not the case at all last year, and now we are 4 games into the season, you would like to see a little bit more consistency in terms of the pass protection up front. And really, you know, that to me is what O-line and pass protection is all about. It's about consistency. Like, every O-line in the country is going to have moments where you say, oh, that was great protection. And every O-line in the country is going to have moments where you say, what the heck was that? Like, that's just football. But the best O-lines, obviously we're talking about percentages. The best O-lines are going to have far more where you say, hey, they gave the quarterback a chance. And even those, it's not always going to be perfect, right? It's going to be more like, hey, they gave him a shot. They gave the quarterback an opportunity there. For Carolina, I think particularly when they're trying to actually just drop back, like the true drop back throw game, throw the ball down the field a little bit, situations this year, like, I think this is directly a little bit related to some of the third down woes that they've had. Like, I think if you're going to, you know, Beamer was even asked, hey, what are the things that you go into this bye week saying, hey, we got to get better at this? He said, way too many sacks, no matter who gets the credit or the blame or the deserve, you know, who deserves what, who cares once you get to a certain amount of sacks, right? And then also just the third down numbers offensively are not what they need to be. Those 2 things, in my opinion, are pretty heavily related to each other. And, you know, I think it's a thing where it's not going to just be fixed overnight. That's probably pretty clear. But you have to keep working to try to clean this thing up to where I also think, guys, the more I watch Dow Loggins call plays, like there's some good stuff here in terms of downfield passing concepts. He knows how to scheme up ways to get guys open versus whatever they're seeing defensively. But you have to be able to give those routes time to develop downfield. And when that happens, we have seen Carolina hit some balls down the field in kind of those intermediate to really long routes. However, when they've tried to drop back on 3rd and long and like actual passing situations, they've given up too many either QB hits, QB sacks, or a lot of times some instant pressure in the backfield.
And defensively, that allows, you know, the teams that are playing against the Gamecocks to say, we're just going to bring – it seems to me, and maybe y'all have some actual data and statistics on this, seems to me South Carolina's worst moments in pass protection, I guess you could say, are when they've been overloaded with blitzes. Like, there have been some times where the team has brought 3 or 4 and, you know, there's been some I remember after week 1, you know, just basic kind of twists, stunts. There's some problems with that. But a lot of times teams have been able to say, we're just going to bring a few more than you can block or 1 more than you can block. Or there's just 1 bust from a back or a tight end, or there's 1 one-on-one loss from an offensive lineman or 1 bust from an offensive lineman, and that can submarine everything that you're doing, obviously. I think teams have been more willing to say, hey, we're going to overload these guys because you're playing, you know, except for the Akron game, you're playing a young quarterback. So let's get his eyes in the wrong place. Or hey, their receiver core is still pretty unproven. We can go just kind of man up against these guys or play a tough zone. And in some instances, they've been right. So all the stuff on offense, works together. If you're able to run the ball, that's going to help you a lot because you're not getting in those 3rd and long situations, or teams have to understand that you're able to run the ball on any down, really. South Carolina is better in that category this year. But they also don't have, a Xavier Legette out there right now that you really have to worry about. They don't have a senior quarterback. Lenoir's will get better at these things, obviously, but I think they've been able to overload South Carolina at times up front.
I also think, just in general, 3rd and longs, 3rd and passing, every team is going to struggle to protect the passer to an extent compared to, let's say, a first down throw. But I think the odds have been skewed a little bit more too heavily towards lots of pressure if you're South Carolina. Like, that's the whole reason you talk about defense putting themselves in 3rd and long, 3rd and 10, is so you can pin your ears back and go get the quarterback, right? So that's just part of football. But for Carolina, you also want for at least part of the time to be like, oh, wow, they dropped back, had time, a route developed, and you gave the quarterback a chance to deliver the football. And some of that is, I think, QB dependent on, hey, what am I seeing up front? Do I adjust the play? Do I adjust the protection? What are some things you can do to maybe give yourself a little bit more time to deliver those footballs? So I think it is a little bit of everything, but also, y'all know, I say his name all the time. I lean on Cole Kubelik. He's an O-line guy, and he's said from the beginning, hey, I still need to see a little more from this offensive line.
Plenty to work on for the Gamecocks in the bye week before they welcome in Ole Miss coming up next Saturday. This will do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs and your Reaction Monday. Halftime show, myself, Terry Ford, up next here on The Game.
All right, guys, you know what? Every single episode is presented by our friends over at Firehouse Subs. Shout out to Larry Chandler and Firehouse Subs for being our presenting sponsor here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Download, we've been telling you for years now. Hopefully you've listened. Download the Firehouse Subs app, and today it is 2 times points Monday, which means we tell you all the time, if you order on the app, you're going to be able to build up these points that you can trade in for free food at a later date. Today, you're going to get double the points. Also, according to this notification I got today, guys, the hot sauce bar is coming back to Firehouse Subs. So be on the lookout for that. 13 sauces to spice up your sub at participating restaurants. Terms do apply. But shout out, as always, to our friends at Firehouse Subs. It is lunchtime now. By far the best way to order your sub. Rapid Rescue online, firehousesubs.com, or with the Firehouse Subs app.